There are moments in life when everything seems uncertain, when it feels like the dreams you've had for yourself are slipping away, or like you've been forgotten in the middle of your struggle. Maybe you're facing challenges right now that feel too big to overcome, and you're wondering how anything good could come from this. But I'm here to tell you, you are not forgotten. In fact, you were chosen for such a time as this. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you were meant for something bigger, but you couldn't see the way forward? Like God has placed a calling on your life, but the path to it is hidden behind obstacles, doubts, and fears? You might be looking at your life right now and thinking, how could I possibly be chosen for anything great in this moment? But I want to remind you of a powerful truth from the Bible. God's timing is always perfect, and His plan for your life is unfolding right now, even if you can't see it yet. Take a moment and think about where you are in life right now. Maybe you're in a season of waiting, struggling, or questioning. Maybe you've been waiting for breakthrough, healing, or clarity. I want you to pause and reflect for a moment. What if, in this very moment, God is preparing you for something extraordinary? What if the season you're in right now is laying the foundation for your breakthrough? What if you are exactly where you need to be? I know, it's hard to imagine that when things feel so uncertain, but the truth is this: God has already chosen you. You were not randomly placed on this earth at this exact moment. There is divine purpose in every twist and turn of your life. This moment, right here, right now, is not a mistake. It's part of His plan. You see, in the Bible, there's a story of a woman named Esther. She was an ordinary woman living in extraordinary times. She didn't know it, but she was chosen for such a time as that, to step into a position of influence and save her people. At the time, Esther didn't understand why her life had unfolded the way it had, why she had been placed in a palace, or why things seemed to align perfectly at a moment when her people were in danger. But God's hand was on her life, guiding her steps, preparing her heart for what was to come. And just like Esther, God has chosen you for such a time as this. It might not be clear right now, but your life is a testimony in the making. There's a divine purpose in your waiting, in your pain, and in your dreams. God is working in ways you can't see yet, but trust that He's already equipped you for the calling He's placed on your life. Now, I know that you may be feeling overwhelmed. Maybe you're unsure of the next step, or maybe you're wondering if you really have what it takes. Let me tell you this: God has never called someone to a purpose without providing them with the strength, wisdom, and resources to fulfill it. Just like He did for Esther, He will do for you. I remember a time when I felt like I was in a waiting season. I had dreams, passions, and desires, but nothing seemed to be happening. Every door I tried to open remained closed, and I began to question whether I was truly chosen for something bigger. But in the quiet moments of prayer, I felt God's gentle whisper, "Trust me, I have you right where I want you." That message stuck with me, and it reminded me that God's plan unfolds in ways that we can't always understand at first. It's in the waiting that He's preparing us for what's to come. Maybe you feel like you're just waiting, like the next step is unclear or your life is on pause. But trust me when I say this: God's timing is never wrong. He's using this time to equip you, to refine you, and to prepare you for the extraordinary things He has in store. Your calling is being shaped even as you wait. Now, I want you to reflect on something personal for a moment. What is the deepest desire in your heart? What is the dream or purpose you feel called to pursue, even if it seems impossible right now? I want you to hold on to that thought, because this is your moment of divine opportunity. You are not here by accident. God has placed you exactly where you are, with everything you need to fulfill your purpose. The season you're in right now is part of the preparation, the training ground, for what is to come. Take a deep breath and remember this: you are chosen. God has set you apart for a purpose, and He is working in ways you cannot yet see. Every step you take, every moment you experience, is part of His perfect plan for your life. Now, let's move forward and dive deeper into understanding how you can begin to trust God's plan, even when it feels unclear. Because God has a perfect plan for you, one that will unfold in ways you can't imagine right now, but it will be worth the wait. As we move forward, let's talk about how to fully embrace God's plan for your life. How can you trust in Him even when everything feels uncertain? As we continue, I want you to reflect on one thing. Are you ready to trust God's plan, even when it doesn't look the way you expected? Trusting God can be one of the hardest things to do, especially when we can't see the full picture. But here's the beautiful thing. God is always working behind the scenes, and He knows what's best for us, even when we don't. When we learn to trust Him fully, we open ourselves up to a life of peace, purpose, and blessings beyond what we can imagine. Let's start by thinking about the times when God asks us to step out in faith. Think about the story of Abraham, when God told him to leave his home, his family, and everything familiar, and go to a land he didn't even know. Now imagine how Abraham must have felt: scared, uncertain, maybe even a little crazy. But despite the unknowns, Abraham trusted God, and because of that, God made a covenant with him that changed the course of history. Abraham didn't have all the answers, but he knew one thing: God was faithful, and if God said to go, He would go. That kind of trust is what God is calling us to today. It's easy to trust God when we can see the outcome, when the path is clear and straightforward. But trusting God when the future is unclear, when you don't know how things will turn out, that's where true faith is tested. God is not just asking us to trust Him when it's convenient. He's asking us to trust Him in the moments of uncertainty, when it feels like we're walking in the dark. And here's the thing: God knows the way, even when we don't. Even in the wilderness, God is leading us. He doesn't leave us to wander aimlessly. Every step we take, even when we don't understand it, is a step toward His greater purpose for our lives. Maybe you've been in a place where you didn't understand why things were happening the way they were. Maybe you've prayed for something and felt like your prayers were going unanswered. I've been there too. I've had moments where I felt like I was walking through a storm with no end in sight. But what I've learned is this: God is with us in the storm. He's not waiting for us to get out of it before He steps in. He's right there in the middle of it, guiding us, strengthening us, and preparing us for what's ahead. When we trust God's plan, we don't just trust that He will show us the way. We also trust that He's using the waiting, the struggles, and even the pain for our good. It's in the hard moments that God does His greatest work. It's in the moments when we feel like giving up that He's building our character, developing our strength, and preparing us for something far greater than we could have imagined. Let me share a personal story with you. There was a time in my life when I felt like I was at a crossroads. I had a dream I was pursuing, but everything seemed to be falling apart. The doors that I thought were opening were closing, and I was left feeling frustrated and confused. It was in that moment of uncertainty that I had to ask myself, do I trust God's plan even when it doesn't make sense? And honestly, it was hard. It felt like the dream I had worked for was slipping away, and I didn't know where to go from there. But in those quiet moments, when I stopped and prayed, I felt God's peace settle over me, reminding me that He had never left me, that He was still in control, and that His plan was still unfolding. That season was hard, but looking back, I can see that it was during that time of waiting and trusting that God was preparing me for something far greater than I could have ever imagined. What I thought was a setback was actually a setup for something even better. And that's what happens when we trust God's plan. We may not see the full picture, but we know that He is working everything together for our good. Now, let's talk about the importance of embracing the unknown. When we trust God's plan, we often have to step into unfamiliar territory. We have to let go of control and trust that God knows what He's doing. This can be a scary thing, especially when we like to have everything figured out. But the truth is, God doesn't need us to have all the answers. He just needs us to follow His lead. I want to encourage you today to embrace the unknown. You don't need to know every detail of the future to trust that God's got it all under control. Sometimes, the best thing we can do is take that first step, even when we're unsure of where it will lead. When we step out in faith, God meets us there. He gives us the strength we need, the wisdom we seek, and the peace to keep going, even when things feel uncertain. Trusting God's plan isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. And as we move forward, let's explore how we can actively trust God in the everyday moments of our lives. What does it look like to trust Him with our relationships, our finances, and our future? Because God's plan is not just about the big moments. It's about how we trust Him in the daily choices, in the quiet moments of our lives. And when we do that, we'll see His faithfulness in ways we never expected. Let's dive deeper into how we can trust God in the everyday moments, in the little things that ultimately lead us to the bigger purpose He has for us. Trusting God with the big moments is one thing, but trusting Him in the everyday, seemingly small decisions can feel just as daunting. We tend to think that trust is only needed when we're facing a crisis or a major life change. But in reality, trusting God every day is the foundation for living a life of peace and purpose. Think about your daily routine for a moment. Maybe you're waking up early, rushing to get the kids ready, or preparing for a busy day at work. These small, routine moments often feel insignificant, but they are where we can truly build trust with God. In fact, trusting God with the small things is what prepares us for the big things He wants to do in our lives. The Bible tells us in Luke 16 verse 10, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." This verse is a reminder that our faithfulness in the little things, the day-to-day acts of obedience, are just as important as our faithfulness in the big, life-changing decisions. When we trust God in the mundane, in the small decisions of our daily lives, we're setting the stage for greater trust and deeper faith in the bigger moments. So, how do we trust God in the small things? It starts with surrender. Surrendering your plans, your worries, and your need for control. Maybe you're facing something today that feels overwhelming, whether it's a challenge at work, a decision about your future, or a relationship that feels complicated. Instead of trying to figure it all out on your own, what if you took a moment to pause and surrender that situation to God? Trust that He knows what's best for you, even when it doesn't make sense. One of the most powerful things we can do is start each day by inviting God into our lives, no matter how ordinary they may seem. When we invite God into our everyday decisions, He helps us make choices that align with His will for our lives. It might be as simple as asking for wisdom in a meeting, asking for patience when dealing with a difficult person, or asking for guidance when making a decision about your future. But each time we do this, we are actively choosing to trust that God is present in every moment, not just the big ones. Trusting God in the everyday means living with an awareness that He is with you, guiding you, and working in you. It's about recognizing His presence in your life, no matter where you are or what you're doing. God is not just with you during the mountaintop moments of life. He's right there with you in the valleys, in the moments when it feels like you're just going through the motions. And even in those moments, He is shaping you, refining you, and preparing you for what's next. Now, let's talk about the practical side of trusting God. Trusting God requires us to act in faith. Faith isn't just a feeling, it's an action. When we trust God, we take steps of obedience, even when we don't fully understand where those steps are leading. It's like when Peter stepped out of the boat in the middle of the storm. The waters were raging, the wind was howling, and everything around him seemed impossible. But Peter trusted Jesus enough to step out of that boat, and that's when the miracle happened. In our lives, stepping out of the boat might look different. It might mean pursuing a dream you've been hesitant to go after, making a decision that feels risky, or stepping into a new season of life. It's about taking that first step, knowing that God is there to catch you, even if the waters seem rough. Trusting God means taking action, not waiting for everything to be perfect or for the path to be clear. When we step out in faith, we open ourselves up to the possibilities that God has in store for us. And more importantly, we allow God to move in and through us in ways that we never thought possible. Maybe today, there's something in your life that feels like a big step of faith. Perhaps there's a decision you need to make, or maybe God is calling you to take a leap, even though the path ahead seems uncertain. God is asking you to trust Him with that step, knowing that He will lead you, guide you, and give you the strength to walk it out. But even more than that, God wants to remind you that you are not alone. He is with you every step of the way. And sometimes, the very act of stepping out in faith opens the door to something greater than you could have ever imagined. Trusting God requires us to let go of the fear of failure, to embrace the possibility of something greater, and to remember that God is always with us, working behind the scenes. As we continue to trust God in the small things, He begins to work in our hearts, building our faith and preparing us for bigger things. But here's the key: we must keep our eyes on Him. When Peter began to sink, it wasn't because God failed him. It was because Peter took his eyes off of Jesus and focused on the storm. But when Peter called out to Jesus, Jesus reached out His hand and pulled him up. In the same way, when life feels overwhelming, keep your eyes on Jesus. Trust that He is your steady anchor, your strong foundation. No matter how stormy life may get, when you trust Him, you will not be shaken. As we move forward in our journey of trust, let's talk about the next thing God is calling us to: the freedom that comes with trusting His plan. What does it really look like to live in the freedom that God promises when we place our trust in Him? It's not just about the external circumstances. It's about the internal peace that comes when we know that God is in control. When we trust God's plan, we begin to experience a deep sense of peace and freedom that transcends our circumstances. When we talk about trusting God's plan, it's not just about surrendering our desires or letting go of control. It's about embracing the peace and freedom that comes when we release the weight of our worries. This is the true beauty of trusting God. We are freed from the pressure of having to make everything work on our own. We no longer have to carry the burden of figuring everything out or making every decision perfectly. God has already worked out the details, and all we have to do is follow His lead. Think about the times in your life when you've tried to control everything. The stress, the anxiety, the constant pressure to make things work, to make things perfect. It's exhausting, isn't it? When we try to carry it all, we find ourselves overwhelmed, and often, that's when we experience the most frustration. But when we finally let go and trust God, something incredible happens. We find that His peace surpasses understanding, and we're able to rest in the certainty that He has our lives in His hands. The Apostle Paul beautifully captures this peace in Philippians 4 verses 6-7, saying, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." This peace isn't based on our circumstances. It's based on the truth that God is in control. When we trust God's plan, we are free from the need to manipulate situations, to worry about the outcome, or to exhaust ourselves trying to make things work in our favor. God's peace steps in and guards our hearts and minds, and with it comes the freedom to live in the present moment, not consumed with fear about what might happen in the future. I remember a time in my own life when I felt the weight of worry pulling me down. I was trying to figure out a major decision about my career, feeling torn between two paths that seemed equally promising but equally uncertain. I was afraid of making the wrong choice, of stepping off the path that God had for me. The pressure felt unbearable, and no matter how much I prayed, I couldn't shake the anxiety. But then one day, I decided to stop trying to control the outcome and simply prayed, "God, I trust you. I believe you've already made a way, and I'll follow wherever you lead. Help me to find peace in your plan, not my own." That was a pivotal moment for me. In that moment of surrender, the anxiety lifted, and for the first time, I felt the peace that comes with trusting that God had it all figured out. That peace didn't mean the decision was instantly clear, but it gave me the strength to move forward without fear, knowing that I wasn't alone in the process. When we trust God's plan, we experience a kind of freedom that we can't find anywhere else. We are freed from the need to control, the fear of failure, and the constant striving to prove ourselves. Trusting God means allowing Him to take the reins and lead us into the future He has prepared for us, even when it feels uncertain or unknown. It means saying, "God, I trust you with every step, even when I can't see the path ahead." This is what it means to walk by faith. Faith is trusting that God's plan is better than our own, even when we can't understand it in the moment. It's trusting that He knows what we need and that He is working all things together for our good, even when our current circumstances might not look like it. God's plans often unfold in unexpected ways, and that's where trust comes in. It's about believing that even in the waiting, in the uncertainty, and in the unknown, God is still working on our behalf. As you think about the areas of your life where you may still be holding on tightly, ask yourself, what would it look like if you let go and truly trusted God? What would it feel like to be free from the pressure of controlling everything, and instead, to walk in the freedom that comes with knowing that He has already gone ahead of you? I know it's not easy to let go of control, but the truth is, the more we trust God's plan, the more we experience His peace and freedom. When we trust that He has a purpose for us, even in the waiting, we can rest assured that He will never leave us nor forsake us. He will guide us every step of the way. And as we walk in this freedom, we begin to understand that trusting God's plan isn't just about us. It's about being a part of something much bigger than ourselves. God has chosen you for such a time as this, and He has positioned you right where you are to make a difference. It's easy to get caught up in the struggle and lose sight of the bigger picture. But when we trust His plan, we begin to see how He is using even the struggles to shape us for His purpose. That brings us to the final truth we need to hold on to in this journey of trust. God's plan is not just for us, it's for the world around us. As we trust Him, He equips us to be a light to others, to share the hope of Jesus, and to bring His love into the world. Your obedience and your trust in God's plan are powerful not just for your own life, but for those around you. Trusting God's plan isn't just a personal journey, it's a call to action. In your life, your story, your struggles, and your faith, God is at work in ways you might not even realize. As you continue to trust Him, He is using your life to impact others, to bring hope, and to show the world that God's plan is perfect, even when it doesn't make sense. Trusting God's plan means believing that He is doing something far greater than you could ever imagine, both in you and through you. As we wrap up this part of the journey, let's reflect on these truths. God has a plan for your life, and He's chosen you for this time. His plan is good, and it's leading you towards something greater. Trusting Him with your life is the most powerful thing you can do, not only for yourself, but for the world around you. Next, we'll focus on how to step into that plan with courage and faith. But for now, take a moment to reflect on God's promises and His faithfulness to you. Trust that He is always with you, guiding you, and working on your behalf. You are not alone. You are chosen for such a time as this. As we come to the final part of this conversation, I want to remind you of something crucial. You are not here by accident. The challenges you've faced, the battles you've fought, the moments when you felt lost or unsure, they are all part of the journey God is walking with you. Every step you take, every decision you make, every moment you choose to trust Him is part of a greater plan that's unfolding in your life. God has chosen you for this time, and He has a specific purpose for your life that only you can fulfill. We've talked about trusting God's plan and the freedom that comes with letting go of control. Now, I want to ask you, are you ready to embrace the calling God has placed on your life? Are you ready to step into that higher purpose with boldness, knowing that He has equipped you with everything you need to succeed, even in the midst of uncertainty? It's easy to get distracted by the noise of life, the expectations of others, or even our own doubts. But when you remember that you are chosen by God, you can walk forward with confidence. You were made for this moment. God has positioned you right where you are for a reason, and His timing is perfect. Think about Esther for a moment. She was an orphan, a young woman living in a foreign land, with no idea of the destiny God had for her. But when the time came, God placed her in the palace, and when her people were in danger, He called her to rise up. Through Esther's trust in God, her courage, and her willingness to step into her purpose, she saved her people. And she did it because she believed that God had chosen her for that very moment. In Esther 4 verse 14, Mordecai speaks these words to her, "And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Those words apply to you today. You are where you are for such a time as this. Whether you're facing challenges in your personal life, your career, or your relationships, God is positioning you to make a difference. Your story, your struggles, and your trust in His plan can be the key to unlocking breakthrough for yourself and others. Now, embracing your calling doesn't mean everything will always be easy. There will be moments of doubt, of struggle, of uncertainty. But it does mean that God is with you every step of the way, and He is guiding you to fulfill the purpose He has set before you. Trusting God's plan means believing that He is bigger than your doubts, stronger than your fears, and more faithful than your failures. I want to encourage you today to let go of the fear that holds you back from stepping into your calling. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be perfect. You don't even have to know exactly how things will turn out. All you need to do is take the next step in faith, trusting that God is leading you. Trusting God's plan means stepping out in faith, even when you can't see the whole picture. It's about embracing the unknown, knowing that God will provide the strength and the wisdom you need when you need it. You are chosen for this season of life, and God will equip you with everything you need to fulfill His purpose. So how do you step into this calling with courage and trust? It starts with remembering that God's plan is bigger than your circumstances. Even when things don't make sense, even when life feels uncertain, God is at work behind the scenes. He is moving on your behalf, orchestrating every detail of your life. Your story isn't finished yet. I know it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the challenges ahead, but remember, God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. You may feel unprepared, but God has already equipped you with everything you need for the task at hand. He has given you gifts, talents, and a unique perspective that can make a difference in the world around you. Trusting God's plan also means embracing the beauty of His timing. Sometimes we want things to happen faster, or we feel like we're running out of time, but God's timing is always perfect. He knows exactly when you're ready for the next step. Trust that He is working in ways you cannot see, and that in His perfect time, everything will fall into place. I also want to encourage you to surround yourself with people who will support and encourage you in your journey. Community is vital when you're trusting God's plan. Find people who will pray with you, encourage you, and remind you of God's promises. When we have others walking alongside us, it's easier to keep moving forward, especially when the road feels uncertain. Before we close, I want to share a final thought. The journey of trusting God's plan is not just about what you will receive, it's about who you will become. It's about becoming the person God has always intended for you to be, the person who walks in faith, courage, and confidence in His promises. It's about becoming a vessel of His love, grace, and power in the world. So today, I want to challenge you to step out in faith. Trust that God has a plan for your life, a plan filled with hope, purpose, and meaning. Let go of your doubts and fears, and embrace the freedom that comes with trusting in His perfect plan for you. You were chosen for such a time as this. Before we end, let's take a moment to pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for reminding us that we are chosen by you for such a time as this. Thank you for your perfect plan for our lives, and for the peace that comes when we trust in your timing and your ways. Lord, help us to release our fears, doubts, and anxieties, and embrace the calling you have placed on our lives. Give us the courage to step into our purpose with confidence, knowing that you are always with us, guiding us and empowering us every step of the way. May we walk in faith, trusting that you are making all things work together for our good. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you so much for joining me today. If this message has encouraged you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Share how you're trusting God's plan in your life right now, and how this message has resonated with you. If you haven't already, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an uplifting word. I'm believing with you that God is doing something incredible in your life. Keep trusting His plan. He's got you.